I'll start us off. Can someone please read verses 5, please? Thank you, Nadine. Just verse 5. Yep.
O you simple ones, understand prudence, and you fools, be of an understanding heart.
So straight off the bat, it tells us that we should never judge, especially after what we already went through last week. If you guys don't remember, last week I went through not judging others, whether they had a bad reputation or whether someone has made it out to be that they have a bad reputation. Who are we to judge that person when we ourselves are in that sin? So we should never judge anyone, but we should also just judge ourselves. So this verse also mentions that we should always lean to the right path of heaven and not lean towards the earthly desires. So I would also like someone to read out verses 10 to 11, please. Thank you.
Receive my instruction and not silver, and knowledge rather than the choice gold. For wisdom is better than rubies, and all things one may desire cannot be compared with her. Wisdom... Keep going.
No, that's it. Thank you. So Solomon is basically telling us that no matter how much gold or silver or rubies there is nothing on this earth that compares to the life we have in heaven. So we should not be so occupied with all the objects and the desires that we have on earth because they are all temporary, but rather we work on our spiritual lives on this earth so we can please God and the church instead of ourselves. So I will be going back a few verses, back to verse 7. I'm sorry, I'm going back and forth. But would someone like to read just verse 7? It's very easy.
For my mouth will speak truth, wickedness is an abomination to my lips.
Okay, I have a story. So I work at a childcare, and one of my kids, they scratched the kid on the face, and so I had to get to the bottom of it. So I was like to them, okay, did you do this? Like, were you the one that scratched the kid? He's like, oh, no, it wasn't me. It was this person. And then he kept naming other kids, and I was like, okay, I saw it with my own eyes. And I knew straight out he was lying, but I didn't want to make it out to be that he was until he told me the truth. So this could be a good practical thing in our daily lives as we ourselves, whenever we are hiding the truth or lying, we are not hiding it from God because he can see it, just like I was able to see it with that kid. So it's like whenever we are hiding anything, just know that we're not hiding it in the eyes of God. So why should we hide it in the first place? What is the point of hiding anything when we can always speak the truth in the first place? I would also like someone to read out verse 17. I'm very sorry.
I love those who love me, and those who seek me diligently will find me.
Okay, so this is a message from God where the more we seek to read the Bible, to confess and pray to God, and speak to him the more and more every day, and also bringing our friends closer to God instead of being put under the influence of bad people. So as we bring ourselves closer to God, we are showing him that he is more important than anything else on this earth. As I said, this earth we live in is temporary. So God is not temporary, he is forever. So we should do everything in our power to gain one-on-one relationship with God so that we can deal with our relationships in the future, our friendship, and anyone just like we could with God. And that's why he says, I will love those as well who love me, because we have a close relationship. Does anyone have any questions? It was really small. No? Thank you, guys.
Hi guys, once again welcome to another Monday night Bible study. It's great to see you on this wonderfully cold evening. Today we're going to continue our journey through Exodus. We're up to Exodus chapter 5 and we've got a blessed Monica guiding us through it, so please make her feel welcome.
Can I say your area is actually freezing, like super cold. Like I got into the driveway and it was all fog. Okay, so it's nice to be here with you guys on, like Anthony said, a freezing night. So you guys have been reading the book of Exodus, is that right? Some of you were here last week or not really? Anyone was here last week? Does anyone want to quickly give me like a quick recap of Exodus chapter 4? What happened in Exodus 4? Like a really short, quick recap. Maybe like a main point you remember from that night. Don't make me freeze to death up here. Anything? Yes? Yes, he does. He goes back to Egypt. Anything else? What does he do? There's a big one in Exodus 4, actually. Yeah, exactly, the burning bush, yeah. That's a massive one. That's something that our church likes to mention a lot in a lot of sermons. So the burning bush. Anything else happen? What did God say to Moses? What did he tell him to do? To go back to Egypt, like you said. And at this point, God has told Moses, you need to go back and you need to talk to the people. And he did all of these miracles, these signs. He changed his stick to a stone, which is pretty incredible. And at this point, do the people believe Moses or not really? They do. Yeah, they do believe Moses. Did anyone, because you guys have already had like 4 speakers, I'm assuming, did anyone give you guys like is this too loud? Am I too loud? No? Okay. Did anyone give you guys a symbolism on, some of the fathers use a symbolism on what is Egypt and what is Pharaoh? Not really? Okay. I'm going to introduce a new one. And I want you guys to keep this representation at the back of your head when we're reading this chapter, because it's actually really important. So some of our church fathers have said that Pharaoh represents Satan, and that Egypt represents life with Satan, and that the Israelites are us Christians journeying the world and getting out of Egypt, so getting out of the world for our salvation and for our salvation. So I want you guys to keep that at the back of your head when we're reading today. Can I get readers? Would that be good? Can we I'm thinking maybe we'll read the whole chapter, so someone who wants to read the whole chapter first, and then we'll split it up and we'll go bit by bit. Thank you very much. So in the name of the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit, one God, amen.
Now after this, Moses and Aaron went and spoke to Pharaoh, "Thus says the Lord God of Israel, let my people go so they may hold a feast to me in the desert." Then Pharaoh said, "Who is he that I should obey his voice to let Israel go? I do not know the Lord, nor will I let Israel go." So they said, "The God of the Hebrews has called us to him. Let us go 3 days' journey into the desert and sacrifice to the Lord our God, lest any time, death, or slaughter happen to us." Then the king of Egypt said to them, "Why, Moses and Aaron, do you take the people from their work? Get back to your work." Again Pharaoh said, "Look, the people of the land are many now, so let us not give them rest from their work." So the same day Pharaoh commanded the taskmasters of the people and their clerks, saying, "You shall no longer give the people straw to make bricks as yesterday and the day before. Let them go and gather straw for themselves. Furthermore, you shall lay on them a daily quota of bricks they are to do each day. You should hold them to it. You shall not reduce it, for they are loafers." Therefore they cry out, saying, "Let us go and sacrifice to our God." Let the labors of these men be oppressive and cause them anxiety, and let them not pay attention to empty words. So the taskmasters of the people and their clerks went out and spoke to the people, saying, "Thus says Pharaoh, I will not give you straw. Go get it yourselves wherever you can find it, yet nothing will be reduced from your workload." The people were then dispersed throughout all of the land of Egypt to gather stubble for straw. The taskmasters also forced them to hurry, saying, "Fulfill your daily quota of work as when straw was given you." Also the clerks from the race of the children of Israel, whom Pharaoh's taskmasters set over them, were beaten and questioned, "Why have you not fulfilled your task in making bricks both yesterday and the day before, and also today?" Then the clerks of Israel's sons entered and cried out to Pharaoh, saying, Why are you dealing thus with your servants? No straw is given your servants, and they say to us, Make bricks, and indeed your servants are beaten, but the fault is with your own people. But he said, You are loafers, you are loafers. Therefore you say, Let us go and sacrifice to the Lord. Now therefore go and work, for no straw shall be given you, yet you shall deliver the quota of bricks. So the clerks from the children of Israel saw they were in trouble. After it was said, You shall not reduce any bricks from your daily quota. Then as they departed from Pharaoh, they met Moses and Aaron, who stood there to meet them. They said to them, Let the Lord look on you, and judge, because you have made us apparent in the sight of Pharaoh, and in the sight of his servants, to put a sword in his hand to kill us. So Moses returned to the Lord and said, O Lord, why have you brought trouble on this people? Why is it you sent me? From the time I went to Pharaoh to speak in your name, he has afflicted this people, neither have you delivered your people at all.
Thank you so much. It's probably the longest anyone will read, so I appreciate that. Okay, so I wanted to read the whole chapter first so that we knew what was going on. Now we're just going to read a couple of verses and just go through them. So I'll read the first one since you guys might want to hear someone else. Okay, so I'll read the first two verses. So it says, Afterwards Moses and Aaron went in and told Pharaoh, Thus says the Lord God of Israel, Let my people go, that they may hold a feast to me in the wilderness. So in chapter 4, this is what God tells Moses to do. He says, okay, you need to go and ask Pharaoh to let the people go to have a feast. There's something interesting here though. It's not word for word. And we know that the book of Moses is written by who? Sorry, the book of Exodus is written by who? I gave it away. Yeah, Moses. And it's interesting and there's a couple of verses that the fathers will focus on and say why it was written by him, because like it has very detailed bits and pieces that no one could have known other than Moses himself. So I think the one that stuck with me was when he murdered that man or that Egyptian. It said he looked to the left and he looked to the right. Who else would have known that other than Moses himself? And there's lots of little bits and evidence that says that it was Moses who wrote the book. Now it's interesting because typically we are told that, if God gives you a certain phrase to say, what are you supposed to do? Do you change it into your own? No. And the church teaches us the same thing. If you take something from the Bible, make sure that it's not up to your own understanding. It is something that is said word for word from the Bible, taken within context. The interesting thing is Moses doesn't say it word for word from what God had told him in chapter 4. But we'll get to that in a little bit. So verse 2, And Pharaoh said, Who is the Lord, that I shall obey his voice to let Israel go? I do not know the Lord, nor will I let Israel go. And his response is actually really interesting. And it's a question that I want all of us to ask ourselves tonight. He said, Who is the Lord? And that's something I want us to reflect on for a little bit. Who is the Lord to me? Who is he? And your answer will tell you the way you live your life. So your answer will determine the way you live your life. If the Lord is a general God for me, and he is just someone that I know I go to see on Sunday and I just have communion and I pray to whenever I get a chance, that's how you're going to live your life. But if the Lord to me is the one who formed me, the one who created me, the one who mends me when I'm out of my way, the one who's going to save me, and the one that I want to spend the rest of my life with, that will determine the rest of the decisions you make in your life now. It will determine your goals, it will determine the job you take, it will determine literally every decision you take. So who is the Lord to me? And this response actually shows Pharaoh's ignorance to the Israelites and who their God is. Okay, he had no idea. And it's interesting because, so obviously this is after the time of Moses, but this is after the time of Joseph. The Pharaoh that was with Joseph knew who this God was and respected who this God was. Not because he followed this God, but because he saw Joseph and what Joseph did for the Israelites and the people. But this is way later. So this is like years later, 400 maybe. And this Pharaoh had no idea. He doesn't know who these Israelites are. They're just slaves to him. He doesn't know who their God is. Doesn't really care. He's super ignorant. Doesn't bother him at all. And like a little insight, this would have been an insult to Pharaoh. Because to the Egyptians, Pharaoh is God. Okay? And for this Moses man to come up to me and tell me I'm going to take half the population out into the wilderness to go have a feast. What do you mean? Like, who is your God? I am God. So it would have been a lot of like jealousy for this Pharaoh. He would have been really annoyed, and I'm surprised his answer was not harsher than this. Okay, let's keep going. I'm going to get someone to read verse 3 for me, please.
Said, the God of the Hebrews has called us to him. Let us go 3 days' journey into the desert and sacrifice the Lord our God, lest at any time death or slaughter happen to us.
Beautiful. Okay. So he says death or slaughter happened to us. That's part that Moses added on. It was never part of what God had told him to do in chapter 4. So if you go back to chapter 4, I think it's verse 21. That's not what God told him to do. He never said there was going to be a punishment. But I think Moses was a little bit terrified at this point. Moses is not responding to my request. What am I going to do? I'm going to add in a threat. And maybe that will work. Don't forget, he's new at the job. He's still figuring things out, and he's still very, like, his character development is huge. Moses is a big character development. But he's still treading on soft spots here. And let's keep going. So someone else read verse 4 till 9 for me.
Then the king of Egypt said to them, "Why, Moses and Aaron, do you take the people from their work? Get back to your work." Again Pharaoh said, "Look, the people of the land are many now, so let us not give them rest from their work." So the same day Pharaoh commanded the taskmasters of the people and their clerks, saying, "You shall no longer give the people straw to make bricks as yesterday and the day before. Let them go and gather straw for themselves. Furthermore, you shall lay on them a daily quota of bricks they are to do each day. You shall hold them to it. You shall not reduce it, for they are loafers. Therefore cry out, saying, 'Let us go and sacrifice to our God.' Let the labors of those men be oppressive and cause them anxiety, and let them not pay attention to empty words."
Okay, beautiful. Thank you. Okay, so what does Pharaoh do here? He's a bit annoyed, and he gives them a punishment. What does he do? He gives them pretty much double the work to do. So their job was simply to make the brick, okay? Now he's like, not only will you make the brick for me, I also want you to collect the materials to make the brick. And on top of that, I'm not reducing your quota. So if you made, God knows, I have no idea, 40 bricks a day, I want you to continue to make 40 bricks a day and collect the material that you have to do. Why? Why is Pharaoh doing this? What's his reason? Think back of the symbolism that we talked about at the very start. So if Pharaoh represents Satan, why is he doing this? To people that want to escape Egypt. What happens whenever I want to make my life better or get closer to God? What does Satan do? What is it? Pride. Yeah. He's like, you think you're going to get out of this? No. I'm going to make it triple as hard. In fact, it's nearly impossible for the Israelites to get out now. What are they going to do? And it's the same thing in our lives. Like whenever I want to, and we just came out of the Great Lent, whenever I want to get closer to God, there's a sudden surge of like all of the troubles come at once. And everything is going bad. My job's going bad. My friendships are going bad. I'm fighting with my parents. And just sudden things out of nowhere will just pop up. And there's a reason that is. There's a reason that Satan wants to hold you back from getting closer to God. The minute I want to get closer to God is the minute that Satan loses his grip. And so, of course, he's going to fight back. And that's exactly what Pharaoh does. And I want to make like another question. So the first question that we focused on was what? The one that God asked. He said, who is God? Yeah, so who is your Lord? So that was your first question. So the question is, who is God? I'm going to change the question a little bit now. I want to ask you guys a different question. Who is our God collectively as Coptics? And then who is my God personally? Okay? So to these Israelites, they knew the God that they worshipped. But who is the God that I worship? And I think it's very common in our Coptic community because the majority of us are born into church. The majority of us are just been brought up in church. We know the rituals, we know that we come every Sunday, we know that we have communion, confession, and we just do it. Like all of the kids are brought up into church. But that does not give me salvation, okay? The fact that I know that I have a God and that I do all of these things does not earn me salvation. And that's where I'm asking, who is it that I say is my own God? Do I have a personal relationship with my God? Do I wake up in the morning and decide that I'm going to do something extra to earn my salvation? Or is it the same thing day in, day out? Okay, so focus on that question throughout tonight as well. Okay. So Pharaoh has said to them, and I think I was reading a little bit about this, basically what the Egyptians used to do, or the Israelites used to do for the Egyptians, is you get straw, which is like really thick straw, and you mix it with like all of these things, and then you put it in like a little cube until it like solids, and that's how you make your brick. So now it gets to the point where they have to collect the straw themselves, okay? And the reasoning that Pharaoh gives to them is because it's a different word. I think I have a different translation. What does it say in what's verse 8? Can someone read verse 8 for me again?
Furthermore, you shall lay on them a daily quota of bricks they are to do each day. You shall hold them to it, you shall not reduce it, for they are loafers. Okay, they are loafers, that's the word. Sorry, I'm blind without my glasses, I apologise. The word that I had here is, what does loafers mean? Does anyone know what it actually means? Yeah, so it's just like, I don't care what's going on, I'm just, like, you're pretty much free, okay? And the word that I had here is idle. So idle is just, you're not going anywhere, you're stuck, okay? And I think to Moses, he's like, well, okay, Moses and Aaron are coming in here and they're like, okay, we need time to go worship. So obviously, you're not busy enough. Okay, obviously you're being idle, you're not doing enough work. Let's give you double the work so you can do more. Okay. I'm going to ask you another question. So we had our first question. What was the first question? Who is the Lord? What's our second question? Who is the God that I worship? So who is my God? I'm going to add another one. There's going to be 5 for tonight. I should have warned you. There's 5. Number 3 is, am I too idle? Or am I being a loafer in my life? Or am I too busy for God? Do we actually think that the Israelites were too idle? Not at all. Like, they were slaves. They were doing work. They weren't just restless. But that's what Satan does in our lives too. So the minute that he sees that I want to get closer to God, he's like, okay, I'm going to make you busy. I'm going to make you so busy you don't have time to worship your God. I'm going to make you so stressed that you can't get up and pray because you're just too stressed. And that's exactly what Pharaoh does here. He's like, I'm going to make you guys so busy, you don't have the time to walk in here and tell me you want 3 days off to go worship some God. I'm just going to give you so much work that you don't have that. Have you guys heard of that acronym, BUSY? Has anyone heard of that acronym? In regards to Satan? It's, BUSY is like being under Satan's yoke. Think about that one. So being busy is being under Satan's yoke. What does it mean? What does that mean? Why is it that being busy is a bad thing? Because it takes you away from God, yeah. You can? I like this, thank you. What do you guys reckon? Busy, good or bad? Why do you think busy is a good thing? If you're being lazy. There's another one. There is when you're being idle, that's Satan's playground. So that's exactly what you're saying. If I'm being restless, Satan's gonna get into my head. Yeah? So what is it then? Am I too busy or am I too restless? That's a question for you guys to ask yourselves. But again, I want to hear your thoughts. Is it better to be busy or is it better to not be busy? What do you guys reckon?
I think that it's better to be busy, but to always keep your heart in a state of like prayer or constant connection with God. Like the Desert Fathers say about don't stay idle, always keep busy, always do something with your hands, always keep yourself occupied so that you can focus your heart properly on God. But I suppose that's different to what you're talking about, where you're just so busy that you can't think, like you're too stressed.
I like that, because I think even if I am so stressed, if I'm constantly thinking of God and constantly praying, whether it's like the Lord's Prayer in the middle of the day, is better than being busy to the point that I despise getting up and praying. Like I'm just too tired to get up and do anything because I'm that busy. Like how many of us are like, I wake up every day at like super early and now I have to get up super early again on a Sunday. And you just get really tired. You're like, can't I just have one day off? And it comes in multiple different forms. Like it comes into, I come home so late from work, there is no way I'm gonna sit and do my prayers before bed. I'm just too exhausted. And you could be really exhausted, but what you're saying is if I have God at the forefront of my mind, that exhaustion doesn't mean anything, yeah? And should I ever be too busy for God? And it goes back to the question that I asked you guys at the start. Where are my priorities? And do I consider God, my God, the one that I'm going to spend the rest of eternity with? And if so, I can't be too busy for that. Like, you can't. If that's where my life is and that's where my heart is, I can't be busy for that. Okay. I'm going to share with you guys, there's a verse in Sirach, and it talks about how whenever we want to get closer to God, it gets worse. So it says, whenever you set your heart to serve the Lord, prepare your heart for temptation. Okay? The minute you decide, I want to be with God or I want to be closer to God, is the minute that Satan is going to attack you relentlessly. He's not going to stop. He refuses to lose a soul. And it will get worse before it gets any better. Okay? All right. Let's keep going from verse 10. Can someone read from 10 till 14 for me?
So the taskmasters of the people and their clerks went out and spoke to the people, saying, "Thus says Pharaoh, I will not give you straw. Go get it yourselves wherever you can find it. Yet nothing will be reduced from your workload." The people were then dispersed throughout all the land of Egypt to gather stubble for straw. The taskmasters also forced them to hurry, saying, "Fulfill your daily quota of work, as when straw was given to you." Also the clerks from the race of the children of Israel, whom Pharaoh's taskmasters set over them, were beaten and questioned. "Why have you not fulfilled your task in making bricks, both yesterday and the day before, and also today?"
Okay, amazing. So not only has Pharaoh said, you need to go collect the straw for yourself and make the brick, and it has to be the same quota, but now these people are getting beaten and asked, why are you failing to do your job? So we have the taskmasters, but we also have, who's the other person in there? Who did it say is getting beaten? I'm sorry, I'm blind. What was it? The clerks. So the clerks are, sorry, I just have a different translation, that's my fault. So your taskmasters are the people that Pharaoh appoints, and then after that there's clerks. Those clerks are the people that are handling the Israelites, and they also are Israelites, okay? And they're the ones getting beaten. They're being asked, why is it that you haven't done your job properly? So the people have gone from a state of being slaves to, I would say, 10 times worse, because now they're suffering, they can't get their job done, and they're being asked why. And not only are they being asked, but they're getting beaten about it. So would you say they're living the best life at the moment? Probably not. They're struggling. Also, I want to point out that to Pharaoh, the fact that these Egyptians would leave for 3 days is actually a huge political problem. Like the amount of Israelites that would leave the country for 3 days, to him, that's pretty massive. Like that's half your population gone for 3 whole days. So he would have had to stop work and everything else. So he had to think politically, but he also had to think, I have to teach you guys a job because I don't want you coming back and asking me the same request again. I will continue to say no. Okay? Let's keep going. Can someone read from 15 to 20 for me?
Then the clerks of the Israel's sons entered and cried out to Pharaoh, saying, "Why are you dealing thus with your servants? No straw is given your servants, and they say to us, 'Make bricks,' and indeed your servants are beaten, for the fault is with your own people." But he said, you are loafers, therefore you say, 'Let us go and sacrifice to the Lord.' Now therefore go and work, for no straw shall be given you, yet you shall deliver the quota of bricks. So the clerks from the children of Israel saw they were in trouble. After it was, you shall not reduce any bricks from your daily quota. Then as they departed from Pharaoh, and they met Moses and Aaron, who stood there to meet them. They said to them, "Let the Lord look on you and judge, because you have made us abhorrent in the sight of Pharaoh and in the sight of his servants, to put a sword in his hand to kill us."
Okay, so how are the people feeling now? They're really annoyed. They're really frustrated. I wouldn't say life was better before this. Actually, I would. Life was better before this. For them, life was better. Yes, they were slaves, but at least it was better than being beaten about it and having to get up probably earlier every day to go collect straws. In fact, they couldn't even find straws. In verse 12, it said they had to go gather stubble because straw was just not around. They couldn't find it. So, yeah, life was better. So Moses and Aaron, why are you doing this? And they did not like it. The problem here is, I want to ask you guys a question. If God had said to the Israelites, all right, hey, guys, I have a better plan for you. I want you to leave everything you have. I want you to go out in the desert for a couple of years. I'm going to provide you a land. It's going to be a good land. But I want you to leave everything. And then you go out to the desert, and then you have to fight whoever's in this land. But after you fight all of them, and after all of the struggle that you're going to have in the desert, you're going to have a good place to be in. You're going to have that promised land. Do you think the Israelites would have jumped at that? Would they have gone? Not at all. They're very content with what everything, like with life and how it was already. I don't think they would have gone. I think it got to the point where God had to push the Israelites out. It wasn't enough to ask them. To them, they were content. They didn't want to go anywhere different. And now I'm going to go to so what were our first questions? So we had 3 already. What was the first one? What is it? Who is the Lord? And then who is my God? The third one? Even I forgot. Yeah, exactly. Am I being too idle in my life, or am I being too busy for God? Your fourth one. Am I accepting what God is offering me? Okay. So God is offering me a great life. He's offering me all of these plans, and we find all of that where? In the Bible. He says, in tribulations, you will have tribulations in the world. Just because I'm Christian does not give me an escape card. You will have tribulations in the world, but be of good cheer. I've overcome the world. But am I accepting that of God? Or is it better for me to just say, don't worry about it, I'm content where I am. I know you're offering me something great, but I don't know what it is, and I can't guarantee that I can get that journey. I can't guarantee that I will survive that journey in the desert for God knows how long. Because for me to get the promised land, for me to get God's promises, I have to have that journey in between. You can't skip that journey, okay? And God's saying, I'm going to be with you in that journey. Like even to the Israelites, he was there. He provided them with food. He provided them with shelter. He provided them with water. He provided for them. But to them, none of that was seen. Like for us, if I'm going to go on a holiday, what's the first thing I'm going to do? I'm going to plan my tickets. I'm going to plan where I'm going. I'm going to take all of my clothes. I'm going to know where I'm going to get off from point A to point B to point C. I've planned it all. For you to tell me you have something promised, but I don't know how I'm going to get there, is really risky for us. And we tend to not want to take spiritual risks. We tend to be comfortable, and maybe I will even use the word idle with where we're at. We tend to go, I will worship the common God that everyone else is worshipping on Sunday. I will come to church on Sunday. I will do the prayers that I do. I will do whatever I've been brought up with traditionally. But don't ask me to take that step further. Okay, so your fourth question is, am I accepting what God is offering me? All right, you know what that one reminds me actually of? Has anyone seen that photo of the little girl with the teddy bear? I'm sure you guys would have seen it. The little girl with the little teddy bear, and she's holding a little teddy bear, and then there's God, and he has this massive teddy bear behind him, and he's like, just give me the one you have, I have something better. It's exactly what it reminds me of. But she can't see the big teddy bear. So she's like, no, I'm going to hold on to what I have. And that's what we do with our lives spiritually. Okay. Also, I have to say, I don't think I blame the Israelites. Okay? I don't think I blame them for being uncertain of leaving. I don't think I blame them for being angry. They are beaten. They're in a pretty bad place right now. And if anything, they've been living with the Egyptians for 400 years, and they're a pagan country. They don't know a God. They don't worship gods, so to say. They worship their idols. They worship Pharaoh. For them, they didn't have the faith or the traditions that we have now. Okay? All right. Let's keep going. Could we read... So we got up to verse, 20? Okay, so verse 20. Sorry, let's go back to verse 20. I'll quickly just read it. So it says, then as they came out from Pharaoh, so the people have gone to Pharaoh, they're like, we can't do it. And he's like, not my problem. Get out, do your job, and then just do your job. It's not my problem. And so they come out, and who do they see? Moses and Aaron. And they're like, let the Lord look upon you and judge. It's like, what's that translation? Like, like I'm actually so upset with you, God will deal with you. I don't want to have to deal with you. And they're upset. They're like, life before you two meddled into it was a lot better. It actually reminds me of like, sometimes even some of the youth these days, like, I don't know what it is, like maybe with jobs or like relationships, they tend to be content with whatever, and they take a lot of the abuse, like they will handle it. And then you ask them why, and they're like, oh, because it's so scary to look for another job. Or it's so scary, there's no one else out there. And that's the answer you get. Like, it's too scary to see what else is there. And I think it's the same thing with us. It's just like, oh, it's just too scary for me to take that step and go talk to a Warner about this problem, or it's just too scary for me to start a whole new prayer routine, or it's just, I don't have the time, like it's too much. I like where I am, and I'm very content where I am. Even though where they are is what? They're slaves. They have no rights. But that is something that I know is better than something I don't know. Okay. Let's read, I think we're up to the last couple of verses. So let's go to verse 20. Sorry, from 20 to 20. No, we've already read 20. 22, and then till the end, please.
So Moses returned to the Lord and said, O Lord, why have you brought trouble on this people? Why is it you sent me? From the time I went to Pharaoh to speak in your name, he has afflicted this people. Neither have you delivered your people at all.
Okay. So Moses goes to the Lord and he's like, you told me to do this, so why is it really not working for me? I've done what I can and it's still not working. What's going on? The funny thing is, God had already warned Moses. God had already said to Moses in chapter 4, go and talk to Pharaoh, but I will harden his heart. He knew that. So why are you so shocked now? And I think that's what we do sometimes. God promises a good life, and yes, you will go through tribulations, but he doesn't promise you no trouble. He doesn't promise you that life is going to be completely easy. You can do what Moses did and talk to God about it. In fact, I'd encourage that. But don't forget that God never promised that, okay? And I think even for the people of the Israelites, what they had, like they'd seen the miracles. They saw the stick turn into snakes. They saw all of that. And I think sometimes we go, oh, if only I can see a miracle, I'll believe. 100% I'll believe. And then I'll change my entire life. I won't be content with it. I'll do what I can. But you see miracles every day. And these Israelites saw the miracles. Did it change anything? Were they jumping at the fact that they had to leave everything behind? No. It didn't change anything for them. And it's the same thing with, like, it reminds me of the story when the rich man came to God and was like, what do I need to do? And he said, leave everything behind. And he walked away sad. Why? He saw the miracles. He believed in God. But that wasn't enough for him to change anything about his life. And it's the same thing for us. So this leads me to my last and final question. Am I able to sacrifice it all for him? Have I reached the stage where I can confidently say, God, you can have it all. You can take it all. It doesn't bother me as long as I reach eternal salvation with you. And be honest with yourself. Can he really have it all? Or is there one or two things that are holding you behind? I think the miracles don't do much if you don't have the internal drive to want to go after God. Like they always ask, like, what is the cost of being a Christian? It's a big cost. You have to give it all. Okay, so let's quickly go back because some new people have just walked in. So let's talk about our 5 questions. Does anyone remember the first one? The one that Pharaoh asked? Who is the Lord? My second question. Who is my God and what does he mean to me? And what is it that I'm willing to do that is different to what we do as a community? Because what we do as a community is great, but that's not going to earn me eternal salvation. You have to have your own relationship with Christ. The third question? You guys always mentioned it. Am I being too idle? So am I just not doing enough? And does that mean that Satan is always interfering with my life? Or am I too busy? Too busy to not worry about Christ, and too busy to want to get up and pray? Am I just too stressed for it all? My fourth question, we talked about God gave the Israelites a plan and said, I have the promised land for you, but you just have to leave everything behind. And the question was, am I accepting what God is offering me? Do I genuinely accept that God has a good plan for me? And then the last question. Will I sacrifice it all for him? Am I willing to sacrifice it? And I think your biggest emphasis is on the word all. Am I ready to give it all for him? Okay. Do you guys have any questions? Kept it short and sweet. Yes.
For the 5th question, am I prepared to sacrifice it all? Do you mean that in a practical, hey God, like you can take my job, you can take my car, you can take my house, like I'm ready to live under a bridge for you? Is that like the extent that we're taking it?
Can I answer? I want to answer it with another question. Yes and no. What do you guys think? Let's open it up. What do you guys think? What does it mean to sacrifice it all for God? Can we even do that in this day and age? Can I give up my job? Because technically, that's like, if you said that to a Buna, he'd say, oh, you're being a little bit illogical here. What's going on? Do we need to see someone? Is that what it means? What does it mean? Someone have an answer? Yeah.
Well, looking at the Bible, it seems like that's the answer. You give away everything, and then you fully put your trust in God, and then He'll give you more than you expect. So, what I think, like David said, even though it's very hard for me to do,
Yeah.
I put you know, won't do anything. But it seems like from the Bible and from previous talks, that's like the response. You give away everything, and then you just fully put your trust in God, and He'll give you everything back, even more.
It's true. Because whatever I give to God, He gives me tenfold. It's true. What does everyone else think? Any other opinions? You can disagree, by the way. Yeah.
Like, I think it's everything that the world gives us. Like, what validates us, our successes. It's, I think that's what would be all. So.
Any other thoughts?
I think it's maybe being able to internally give it up, not necessarily externally.
That's an interesting one. What do you mean internally?
Like being ready to, if ever called to do that for the sake of Christ, then being able to make that decision internally.
Sorry, I was just probing. Yes. Any other thoughts?
I mean, just to answer him, to what extent do you sacrifice everything that God is going to give you more? Because, for example, if you do give up something and you're expecting Him to give it to you, but He still hasn't given it to you, and you're praying and you're like, oh, God, I want it, but you don't get it, wouldn't you think that, okay, He hasn't gotten me something? Is that like what you... That's a little thing to ask you. Okay, so you're saying that you're sacrificing everything and He's going to give you 10 rewards and give you more and more. But what if He doesn't end up giving you what you wanted at the end and you've sacrificed everything for nothing?
It seems like, I've had an experience myself, it seems like in the Bible, that everyone in the Bible who sacrificed something got a lot more back. Like, for example, Job or Joseph or Abraham or anyone who made or sacrificed something got a lot more back. Plus God.
Nothing else? I agree with both of you. I think my biggest thing here would be your intention. Is my intention that I'm going to give it all to God so that I can get something back? You're on the wrong track. Is my intention that I can give it all to God, and I think someone else said it, because I love Him so much and it doesn't bother me? That's where I think we need to be. If I ask you, if tomorrow you lose your job, are you going to be okay and are you going to trust God? And if your answer is, typically we're human, of course your answer is going to be, no, I'm stressed. Okay, and that's okay. But you can be stressed and still have inner peace. Okay, I think this is mentioned in a lot of our talks. I can be super stressed. Like, how many times you see, I'm going to go to the extreme here, how many times do we see someone who's like had a death in the family, but they're so peaceful? And you look at them and you're like, how is this person normal? Like, you just lost someone so close to you. Like, are you okay? And their answer is, I know they're in a better place. And their answer is always, I know, but I'm going to see them again. And the answer is, yes, of course I'm sad, but I have inner peace and I trust God. And I think that's where we need to aim to be. If you lose it all tomorrow, will you have inner peace? And if the answer is no or maybe, that means we need to work on something. And that's why these questions are there. Have I accepted the fact that God has offered me everything in the world? Because if in my head I don't trust God enough to provide, then I don't think you have enough faith. And I think maybe I would say, like these Israelites, their faith was very superficial. It wasn't something that they can hold on to. They didn't know this God. To them it was just this, Moses is telling us all these things, and yes, we know our history, and yes, we know that he's been with us through all of these time, and we know that he's chosen us. Don't forget, by the way, they didn't have the law yet. They didn't have any of these traditions. They didn't have any of that until out in the desert. So to them, who is this God? And I think maybe that's where a lot of Christians nowadays are at. We're like, I know there is a God. I know that he's great. I know that there's so many people that have so much faith in him. But to me, I'm not sure I can give it all up for you or for this God just yet. And that just gives you something to think about. What is it that I need to do to get to that point? Does that answer the question? Again, so the fact is your intention. If my intention is, I'm going to give it to him so that I can get something back, no. I'm going to give it to him because I fully trust that he will take care of me. That's your answer. The first question was, can I actually give it all to him? And I don't intentionally mean go and, again, there are people that do this and give it all to God. That's not everyone's calling. And I think everyone can understand that. I think when it means to give it all is, will I be okay if it's all taken tomorrow? And then what is it that I can give? Is it my time? Is it my money? Is it my energy? What is it that I can? Go back to the second question, like, we have our God, that's great, but I also have to have my God and my relationship with my God. And what is it that I'm doing to strengthen that relationship with my God? If it means that I have to sacrifice an extra thing in my day, then that's what you need to work on. Okay, any more questions? Okay, cool. Thank you, guys.